So South Africa, as we all know, has a big sexual violence problem, and among the victims are thousands of children. Recently, government confirmed that about 6 children had been raped and 7 men had been arrested for the rapes of those children from the period the 31st of March until Sunday, the 6th of April. And the cases we're talking about are just the ones reported to police, where adults are raping children. Now, a new bit of research is out looking at how teachers respond and how quickly they report cases of statutory rape to the authorities. Let's speak about that now with UNISA postdoctoral researcher, Dr. Ayobami Adekola. A very good evening to you, Doctor. Good to have your time on SABC. Speak to us first about the scope of the research that you conducted and the highlights.
Okay, good evening, Timby, and good evening to the viewers at home. Thanks so much for having me tonight. Okay, this study is a product of a project, which is a community engagement project, which started about 12 years ago. It also goes with a long studies where we try to measure the impact of the effect of all the interventions that have been made of those 12 years. So last year, when we were doing this community engagement activities, we were engaging different stakeholders from Department of Basic Education, students, the school management teams, and teachers. Then while we engage them through observation, we go to their classes, we invited them for trainings, and then we find out that while there is a very progressive policy by the Department of Basic Education in 2021, we realized that the teachers, some teachers were not even aware of this policy, so that means that they could not actually implement what they don't know anything about. Mm-hmm. Also, we find out that those who actually knew about the policy do not know how to implement it, and when they know how to implement it, because of the fear of backlash or retaliation from the community where they operate, so they could not do any reporting of a statutory rape.
I'm keen to hear more about this lack of knowledge of what the stipulated procedure is when a child is known to have been raped in a school environment, and the teachers who didn't know. Was that out of sheer ignorance, that they themselves weren't fully engaged with what's required of them, or that it was simply never communicated, perhaps by the higher-ups in the system?
Yeah, I would think that speaking to these teachers, some of them believe that the reporting of statutory rape should actually rest on the parents. However, the policy says something different, which means that they need to be educated. They needed to be educated about this. They themselves need to be trained about how this reporting have to be done. And while the policy is very good, it again needs to face the reality of what is happening in rural areas where people are living in a tight-knit community, and where some of these perpetrators are very influential in the community. Some of them are the breadwinners of the family, and which means that reporting them comes with a lot of consequences, which include economic and also other social consequences, because people that report could be socially, become an outcast.
Right.
Just by reporting somebody who is very influential in the community.
So the socio-economic context of the community also compounds, if we can say, the abuse suffered by the child, who may perhaps be forced into silence by the adults, either in the home or even at school, because we're talking here about the Vembe district, which is where your research was done.
Absolutely. That is correct. The socio-economic situation of the context where this research took place play a very important role on the reporting of a statutory rape, because where the perpetrator is the breadwinner, the teachers gave us some instances where if they report, the mother of the victim we come to them like, okay, you cannot report this man, because if you do and this man is being arrested, what that means that you must be ready to take care of us, because then we need money to feed, we need money to take care of ourselves, and this is the only person that provides for the family. And so, and also sometimes you discover that intergenerational relationship and transactional sex also is a norm, and that means it is acceptable for economic reason, and this make it difficult to report.
So to what extent then, given that very context, could an increase in educating teachers and other school staff about their responsibilities, their obligations in reporting statutory rape, how much could that help, given that very context which you've just laid out?
Yeah, it will only play a part, because while we made the recommendation after the study, we made an holistic recommendation, which means that it has to be multifaceted. It has to include all the stakeholders. It cannot just be the training of the teachers. That has to be done, since we have some teachers who claim that they did not know about the policy. So obviously, a very good policy in itself is not effective if the resources are not deployed to implement it. So teachers have to be trained, and they have to be also supported. They need to feel supported. The support may be there, but it needs to be communicated to them that should there be a backlash, you'll be protected, you'll be supported. There should be also a kind of confidential reporting system. But beyond that, the most important factor is the socioeconomic situation needs to be addressed, and the community needs to be engaged too.
And briefly, sir, if you can, let's, for the purpose, in fact, of parents, guardians listening, and perhaps even other teachers who are not aware of their obligations in this regard, let's go back a few steps and talk about what they are required to do as educators when a child has been raped, either on school premises or even beyond the gates.
So, if a child who is younger than 16 years old is made pregnant by another individual or entity who is older than 16 years old, so the policy demands that such case should be reported to the police, to SAPS. Why? That is the first thing. Of course, there are other issues like you need to look and protect the victim. They need to see the counselor. For counseling, they need to be referred to the even health workers where it is needed. But beyond that, they need to report the case. It has to be investigated. Where the perpetrator or the person is less than 16, you need to protect even the perpetrator. You need to also counsel them. You need to protect their identity. But in a case where the perpetrator is older than 16, that has to be reported to SAPS. That's what the policy said.
Dr. Ayobami Adekola joining us this evening, a UNISA postdoctoral researcher speaking to us about delays in reporting of statutory rape from teachers. Thank you so much for your time on SABC News.